everyone! Welcome back to my summer injury prevention video series. My name is Crystal Bartkowski and I'm a certified athletic therapist. Today we're going to be talking about gardening and low back pain. When you think of gardening, you probably think about the soil, the digging, planting all the fruits and vegetables, but you also probably think about how sore you normally get. So when it comes to gardening and injury prevention, it's all about moving well. So today I'm going to be showing you guys how to move properly throughout the types of movements you're going to be doing while you're gardening. A lot of times gardening pain is caused by sustained postures and awkward positions while you're gardening. So we really want to try and avoid those and keep good posture. You also want to get up every 20 minutes or so and kind of move around, get your body out of that position. So today for equipment, you don't need anything to start off with. Once you become a little bit better at these movements, then you can add a light weight and slowly increase that weight. So one of the exercises I'm going to be showing you guys today is a deadlift. When you're picking up things while you're gardening, moving them around, a deadlift can be a really good option to pick up that load. However, before we get into the deadlift, it's important that you know how to properly pivot and hinge around your hips instead of bending at your low back. So first we're going to be going over a hip hinge. So when you think about your pelvis and your femur, they make a ball and socket joint. So when we're bending over, what we really want to be doing is having our pelvis rotate around the top of our femur, rather than rounding our low back. So the first exercise we're going to be doing is just learning how to actually do that movement. So you guys want to set up with your hips, or with your legs kind of just under your hips. And then we're going to hinge from our hip. So what you're going to do is kind of send your butt backwards a little bit as you bend forward. So again, we don't want to be bending from our low back. We want to be hinging at the hips. So we're going to have a slight knee bend, and you're going to send your hips backwards and hinge at the hip. Only go down as far as you can until you kind of feel that pull in your hamstrings, and then we're going to stand back up. So it can be helpful to have your hands right on your hips, kind of right on that bone, the hip bone here. And as you hinge, you want to feel that part moving down. So if I was to be bending at my low back rather than my hips, it would look a little bit more like this. You can see kind of the rounding here, rather than. Okay. So we're going to do 10 hip hinges together, okay? So I'm going to have a soft bend in my knees, send my hips backwards, and then stand up. And you don't want to rush these. They should be a nice, controlled exercise. All right, 5 more. Last one. Okay. So the hip hinge is a really good movement that you can do kind of to prime your body before you do any sort of home workouts even, or as a warm-up before you do any gardening. It just really sets in that we want to hinge from our hips rather than from our low back, because that's where we can get some low back injuries. So now that you guys know how to do a proper hip hinge, we're going to go over the deadlift. So like I mentioned earlier, the deadlift's a really good option when you need to pick up something and carry it. A deadlift uses our legs to lift the load, not your back. It is different than a squat in that you are leaned forward a little bit more, but you're still mostly lifting with your legs. All right, so let's talk about the starting position for a deadlift. We're going to have our feet under our hips. We're going to bend at the knee and then bend at the hip. So you can even put your arms down like you're going to pick something up. So you'll notice how my back is flat. It's not rounded and I'm not bent over from my back. I am hinged over at the hips with my knees bent. You'll notice that this is not a squat. So a squat position looks more like this. My torso is a little bit more upright, but in a deadlift, I'm hinged forward a little bit more. When we pick up the load, or the weight, or whatever it is we're picking up, we want to keep it nice and close to our body. From here, I'm going to stand up a little bit, and then when I get to about the point around my knees, that's when I'm going to start to straighten up. And then we're just going to reverse that motion. So we're going to shoot our hips back, bend our knees, and hinge from the hip. So I'm going to show you with a broomstick, just so you can see the path of motion. So I want to start, again, hinge at the hip, nice and flat back, knees are bent. And as I stand up, I'm going to push with my legs, keeping the weight close to my shins. Once I get to about here, that's when I'm going to start to extend my hip and bring my torso up. So again, as I mentioned, you'll notice I'm not squatting. I'm not going straight down. I am hinging from the hip. So I want you guys to start this off without a weight. As you get better at it, then you can add a weight. So let's do 10 of these together. So we're going to start from the bottom. Once you have your nice setup position, back is nice and straight, we can start. Okay. Again, as you go down, make sure you shoot your hips backwards. So in a deadlift, we are using our back muscles to pick up the weight a little bit, but because we're hinging from our hip and not rounding at our back, we're not risking straining our back muscles. And we're also using mostly our legs to stand up. So the deadlift is something you guys can practice. Again, once you get the hang of the movement without weight, then you can add light weight. You can use a kettlebell, dumbbells, textbooks, anything you have around the house. It's also a really good warm-up to do before gardening because, again, it primes your body and primes your brain into using proper movement patterns. So the next exercise we're going to go over is how to do a squat. When you are gardening, you're going to end up doing a lot of squats, so we want to make sure we're doing them as best we can. So to set up for a squat, you want your feet usually just a little bit wider than hip width. This is going to vary from person to person, so play around with it and find out what feels most comfortable for you. Usually you might have your toes turned out just a little bit, but again, this will vary kind of depending on your hip structure. So, key things to look for when we're squatting. You want to try and have your torso angle and your shin angle about the same as best you can. So I'm going to demonstrate a squat for you guys. So we don't want to be lean too far forward. We want to try and keep our chest up as much as we can. We also don't want our knees collapsing in when we're squatting. So we want to try and keep them kind of straight over our feet. So a squat can be another good option when you need to pick up something heavy, like a bag of soil, because we're really going to use our legs to move that weight. When you squat, you don't need to go too low. It's going to vary depending on your flexibility and what your body allows. So let's go ahead and do 10 squats together. Good, 5 more. Good job, guys. So again, a squat can be a good movement, again, to practice in preparation for gardening season. As well, you can use it as a warm-up for gardening. Again, you want to prime those muscles, prime your neurological system into moving properly. And the final exercise we're going to go over today is called a bird dog. So a bird dog works on working on your core stability and stabilization. We want to keep a good stacked solid core position because it's going to reduce our risk of injury to our low back. You guys may have seen bird dogs done in the gym before. This will be similar, but we're going to really focus on keeping this position. So when we get into the position, we're going to have a straight line from our shoulders to our hips and keep our ribs stacked over our pelvis. You want to start by getting onto all fours. You're going to have your hands under your shoulders, knees under your hips, and then we're going to create that long spine and stack. Again, have a straight line from our shoulders to our hips. So that we don't want to be dipped down in our low back or rounded up. We're going to be nice and straight. Keeping this position is going to be the most important part of the exercise. What we're going to do from here is you're going to slowly extend one arm and one leg, but you're only going to go as far as you can before you lose this position. So. And then we're going to bring it back in nice and controlled. The other thing to watch for is you also want to make sure your hips and your pelvis stay at about the same height when you move your arm and your leg. You don't want it to be dipping down or dipping up, so you really need to focus on controlling this position. You might find that one side is harder than the other. That's normal. So once this gets a little bit easier, you can work on extending your arm and leg a little bit farther. That's something you want to build up to, and just start going as far as you can just before you lose that position. So let's do 10 together. Make sure you bring it back in nice and slow too. Two more. Awesome, nice work, guys. So with the bird dogs, once they start to get easy and you're able to fully extend and bring back without losing any of your stability here, you can always make it a little bit more difficult by changing up the movements. So rather than your arm and leg going straight out, they can come out to the side. All right, and that's all I have for you guys today. Nice work. These movements are something that athletic therapists such as myself work on in the clinic. We help make sure you're moving properly so that we can prevent injury or get you back from injury back into doing what you love. If you have any questions about anything in today's video or something you'd like to see, maybe a specific injury or sport, feel free to email me at gameonathletictherapy.com. We'll see you tomorrow.